Next thing, we will talk about the architecture of enterprise system. And the word architecture means like components that make up an enterprise system. So what are the components that make up the system? We talked about, for example, the database. We talked about the application itself. We talked about the front end, what you see, the menus that you and I, the users, see. So that's what we call a client-server architecture. But there also have evolved another model that's called a service-oriented architecture, where you group now not just the enterprise system, but other systems along with it. So remember when I showed you last time that picture where we have the suppliers and the customers, and I told you that all of these have been bundled with the enterprise. So instead of just having the enterprise systems, now we have other systems connected to it, what we call third party. Third party meaning it is an external system, other system that is connected. And we look at now the enterprise system as a combination of services. A combination of services. Here is a view of the three layers that make up the client-server architecture. As you can see, we have the database at the back end, what we call behind the scenes, because no one can see the database. You do not ever get to see the tables unless you are a database administrator, or some kind of an IT professional where you can go inside of the tables. You get views of the table, what data is inside of the table, but you do not get physical access to the database. And then in the middle, you have the application server. That's where the logic is. The logic and the steps for each business process. So, for example, when we sell to a customer, it is the application server that defines I first have to create an inquiry and then copy that inquiry into a quotation and then wait for the client to approve it and then create a sales order and then send permission to the warehouse to release the inventory and then send to packaging and then ship, and then once you ship, then you charge the customer and then you wait for the payment to come, and when the payment comes, then you reflect on the accounts receivable and the cash. So the process of what needs to be done first and then next is in the application server. That's the logic. These are the steps that support the business process. At the very top is the presentation layer. This is what you and I see when we run the program. So when we go and enter a sales order, we are working with a set of menus, and these menus form the GUI, the graphical user interface. So the presentation layer is what we see when we are running the business process. So having these three layers enabled us to have scalability, meaning that we are able to service more and more customers using these three layers. Why? Because now I have distributed the application among multiple servers. And even though you see here there is one database, a lot of times even the database is distributed. And now with the cloud, and we'll talk about that later on in the semester, you see that now you really don't know, you are shielded from where the data physically exists. So The fact that we have separated the database from the application, from the presentation, it enabled us to service more and more clients. The client-server architecture is not the only model that we have. 10 years ago, a new model emerged, and that's the service-oriented architecture. And the reason that this model emerged is because of the need to add new features to the already existing enterprise systems. New features that reside in other applications. So you want to integrate several client-server architecture or several client-server systems together. Now, companies start thinking, okay, I'm going to integrate my supply chain management with my enterprise system. And I'm also going to integrate my customer relationship management, the CRM, with the enterprise system. So I'm going to treat them as services, or what we call web services. Services that are available over the internet. So now it is creating what we call an inter-organizational system. And we talked about that last time. It's no longer an intra-organization. Intra means inside, within. Intra-organizational meaning a system that supports all functional areas within the organization. Inter-organizational would be a system that support again multiple functional areas, but also is integrated with other systems. So the service-oriented architecture started treating the different modules as services, and they are web-enabled, meaning that you can access these services over the internet. You don't have to have the system hosted inside your organization. You don't have to have the system inside of the organization. All you have to have is access, internet access, plus access, the right to use that service. Now, treating these services or integrating these services together required that they are able to talk to each other. Think about you and me. If I start speaking, for example, Japanese, you will not be able to understand me. The only way that we can communicate is through what we call a common language. A common, the technical term actually is not a common language, it's a common interface or a standard interface. We can understand each other because we are speaking a universal language like English. Or I can start talking in Arabic and you will still understand me because the majority speaks Arabic here. So the ability of these web services to integrate together and communicate with each other was made possible because of the standard interface. Now I'm able to integrate different units together or different services together that come from different vendors, and I create what we call an inter-organizational system or a composite application. We are connecting multiple applications together. And how is that possible? Because they all use a standard interface, a common interface. Of course, that increased the capabilities of these applications because now they can provide even larger set of services and support processes that span organizations, not functional areas. Remember when we talked about the enterprise system, we said it spanned the whole organization? Now it's spanning across different organizations, and that's made possible because of the service-oriented architecture. I can as we said, integrate multiple services that are provided by many vendors, and that is made possible through the standard interface.